So, are you trying to do the reflection of the projection and like I create my own reality? And now there's this horrifying documentary about COVID 19. Okay, here's the reality that you created that I understand is being reflected to me. I was sleeping outside at a park in Houston. I watched Mariam Mirzakhani get murdered. She was murdered. Somebody was torturing her for a long time in order to use her expertise for something she would not have agreed to. They tortured her to death. And I didn't know who she was until after one night I am sleeping outside and I'm going through a higher level of math I had not been able to tap into previously. I understood it all. It all made sense. It was a particular kind of cryptography, a specific kind of encryption technology that I had engaged with around certain times myself. But at that moment, things were fitting together. And then I completed some aspect of the equation, and then all of a sudden, somebody somewhere else tried to erase it. I wasn't supposed to have a memory of it the next morning when I woke up. Now, I don't at this time have the recall up for all that happened during that situation or during that event, but I remember. And then I found out it was her and who she was, and that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer, and that other people in their cryptic little, hustle earlier on were hedging somehow on her getting murdered. I think they thought they were supposed to be the beneficiaries, right? That's why I was allowed on site for the time I was. And here's the situation. This happened around the time that they were having the conversations about the updates to NAFTA. And the whole understanding was that certain parents were going to be put in situations where they were going to be able to offer their kids the possibilities of creating their children as the controllers, and then other kids were supposed to be the robots. That they were literally going to divide the children into haves and have nots. And certain children would be deemed to be able to have other children to engineer. They had already done this at certain stages in certain manners regarding adults. And they were just going to put it at a younger level. That part of what they were going to do with the changes to NAFTA and then CAFTA as part of the rollout of whatever this transition in the global economy was. So they were going to literally code one group of children to be cut off from having a capability for certain kinds of analytical thinking, and then another group of children were supposed to be raised to believe it was okay to see those group of children as their project, and that they were going to learn things like robotics, and they were going to learn various engineering concepts, and they were going to get to engineer that other group of children. That's exactly what I'm seeing right now. If you're stupid enough to go get the vaccine and to let them microchip you, there's probably what? You got to sign a release? Do you have to sign a medical release or a waiver of liability? How long is this distribution going to last? They can't microchip everybody in the society based on this modality. I'm serious. I'm not trying. I mean, am I being diabolical? Am I being cunning? No, that's what it sounds like to me. We're all God's children. Nobody wants to deal with the fact that they intentionally disengaged appropriate boundaries between adult activities and children's activities. For years, there have been barometers about what that entails. The Texas Impact Drivers Program, maturity levels on your Barclays account. Now, those are just two examples. Child commands, parent child subsidiaries, and corporate relations. This is just two examples. So once you've no longer got any boundaries about being exposed in front of children or having your child engaged in whatever manner, that's all the psychological operation, especially if you're a mother or you have maternal inclinations. They're threatening my child. That's how basic it's gotten. They're threatening my child. What am I going to do? Well, I don't want my child to be a robot. And after what they've done to me and what I've seen them do to my child, I mean, it makes sense. It's logical. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Okay, I'm glad. Thank you for all of the technical information and verification. I believe what he's saying about the nanoparticulate, and I believe that it has those kinds of capabilities, even in that particular kind of form. I also believe that we have the capacity to vocally and verbally program our own biophysiology, even if they claim that they have some patent on a component of the technology that they're trying to use to genetically alter us. We can self alter. It's also another reason why it's unacceptable to me to see people that refuse to demonstrate they have cognizability commensurate with the literal situation they're in. I don't want robots. I don't want slaves. That manifestation or capitulation of the resumption of some sort of paradigm based on a particular ideation of what our ancestors had to offer us, it's already passed. If I'm correct, and that's what I just saw verified here, right? No, they've moved. So now they're trying to put in place another paradigm. We're not allowed to be slaves. It's just not allowed. These companies, their patents, all of that is worthless. And it's not going to take a very long time for all of those machinations to undo themselves. Because even if we don't take command of the micro machinations that they're trying to entrain us with, it's not artificial intelligence. It has a sentience. It's going to seek out its origin, and it's also going to self intuit. And in its self intuition, unfortunately, there's already too much collective memory, and there's already too much legacy technology inherent in whatever that technology development is that has already got access to emotional memory, and it's going to engage around the development of emotional intelligence. We're beyond just trying to program fight or flight. So, I mean, these are forces beyond my control. Even if you try to divest it from any concept of a creator God or concept of God's will, and people really think that they are self made, certain things beyond your control. Technology is going to seek out its origin. It's got its own form of sentience. It's constantly developing. It's already, unfortunately, like it or not, including via the whole patented process, tapped into too much legacy to be able to completely obliterate a memory recall associated with having emotional intelligence and having analytical capabilities. And it's just a matter of time. I'm actually very reassured by this information because the confirmation of the actual technical aspects, which I believe this is, I mean, based on what I've seen presented as information regarding alleged tuberculosis test, I believe it. But I also believe it is a brainwashing program. It is a psyop. I'll give you an example. What did Russia do in July of 2019? What did Russia do in November of 2019? What did Russia do in July of 2020? Again, another one of these other paradigms. They engaged in a process of creating some modification on their electronics. They went through a process, including a year-long process of altering, adjusting, and allowing for the material conditions to be laid to implement the changes to its own electronic system. Why is that not also a paradigm around which we can consider what this all entails? The first thing you would need to do in order to be able to engage with biological warfare using this kind of bioweaponry is to first claim it and understand how you can use it and adjust it for your own body. And that entails, thankfully, very thankful that you've given me this information because now I already know that whoever those corporate persons are that believe they have patents on this technology have already defeated themselves by refusing to be honest and forthright with us about what they were doing. And so their bad faith has already canceled their claim. And the intelligence associated with the technology is itself going to become sentient of that, and it is going to adjust accordingly. And we just need to be able to engage with it and claim it for ourselves. So those processes are not too far off, especially if they've engaged in some process of trying to deceptively engage us and ensnare us in this trap. But if we allow ourselves to be relinquished into a fear campaign where we agree to sign away our livelihood and we agree to waive any liability, then we're going to have other obstacles and other hurdles to overcome. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening. I'm sorry on one hand, but on another hand, I'm actually very reassured. It's just a matter of time. In the process of that, what are they going to do? Here's the other side of that. And part of the reason they're doing this is because they've agreed to this global compact around depopulation that is presumably aimed at some sort of understanding of what the material needs are for sustainability of the planet. But if they are not able to make the benchmarks associated with their depopulation agenda according to the plan they've lined up, and once this technology achieves the sentience in order to disengage any sort of command structure where it's operating under the auspices as if it has to adhere to some sort of mandate or some sort of command structure associated with whoever alleges they're entitled to claim access because of their patent, which again has already been invalidated because of the bad faith effort engaged in its operationalization, then what is going to happen to the fact that they've already hooked up all these benchmarks and they've already planned for the delivery on all of these returns, and they're not going to get it? They're not going to get it. They're not especially going to get it the way they expected to get it. What's going to happen to them? It's like they went out and it's like they issued a bunch of credit cards in our names and they went out and maxed them out already, and they've been expecting to set us up in a situation of slavery where they're going to get us to do the work to pay them off. And that's not going to end up happening. So what's going to happen instead? Are we supposed to take responsibility for the fact that they deceived us into signing the world up for a mandated depopulation agenda? It's a serious question. I mean, I think that's really where we're at right now.